You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
He's waiting.
Classic Star Wars and the collectibles they gave us. From vintage Star Wars to the modern era of the saga. This is Collecting Tracks.
Here is your host, Mark Newbold.
So we're at UK Games Expo. It's Saturday afternoon. I'm here with John. How are you and how's the show going so far?
It's been an amazing show, Mark. I love UK Games Expo. I just mentioned to you, this is my second visit here for the expo, and it's just incredible. The people are so lovely. The booths are amazing. So excited to see all the cool games, and it's just great. I look forward to this all year.
As listeners know, I'm a Star Wars guy. I'm not a gaming guy. Rules fall out of my... I can just about do Snap.
Okay.
That's about my level. But it's Star Wars and it grabs my attention, and there's always been, over the course of the whole Star Wars experience, Star Wars games to escape the Death Star back in the early days.
Absolutely.
Through all the role-play era of West End and computer gaming and everything else that wants to pull you into the Star Wars galaxy. So, as a complete layman, as a novice to Star Wars Unlimited, before we get into any questions, why would I, as a Star Wars fan, want to lay down my hard-earned credits and start playing Star Wars Unlimited?
Very important question, very meaningful question, because Star Wars Unlimited is the first trading card game for a lot of people. To begin with, a trading card game, the context for those who might not know, is a game in which you customize your own deck of playing cards featuring your favorite characters from Star Wars, iconic events and moments from the series, and from across the entire Star Wars experience. So the reason you might like the game, or the reason a person might like the game, is that we really believe that this is a game that's easy to get into and has a really high skill ceiling.
Right.
So whether you're an experienced gamer, we've got a great competitive scene. But for the people who just want to have a game where they get to see if Mace Windu could take on Darth Vader one-on-one, we can do that. We have so many great characters from Star Wars, from Darth Vader all the way down to some pretty deep cuts. Our latest set, Legends of the Force, features characters like Avar Kriss from the High Republic, as well as Depa Billaba, and characters with no lines in the films but are beloved to lots of people.
So if I wanted a game, if we threw down some cards now, I could have a game with yourself. If two other people came along, the four of us could play. Mm-hmm. How broad a scope is it to the amount of people that can play? And could we play a quick game? Could we play a long game? Is it malleable in that way?
Very, very smart question. So Star Wars Unlimited is playable for groups of two, pairs of two, or you could play a four-player mode. We've created a special multiplayer free-for-all mode called Twin Suns,
right?
In which you have two leaders. Each player controls two main characters instead of just one. And so those decks get to be a little bit wilder and seek out even more interesting synergies among their favorite characters. Of course, the game also supports formats like Draft and Sealed, which theoretically could support any numbers of players. It's commonly pods of 8 players who will sit down and create a deck together, each player making their own deck out of a pool of random cards.
Okay, so when you play, because the games, it's 5 expansions now, is it right?
Yes.
So, and they cover different time periods across the Star Wars timeline, don't they?
Different eras and themes too.
So are you limited? I mean, the game's called Unlimited, so I'm guessing not. Are you able to take a character from, let's say, you mentioned Avar Kriss from the High Republic, so could you take Avar? Could she play a game with Rey? Can you mix and match?
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that's really exciting about Star Wars Unlimited is the way in which we get to treat the Star Wars galaxy like a sandbox. It's acceptable, normal, and fun to put Jango Fett and Boba Fett and Darth Vader all in a deck together.
Right.
And you're really only limited by your imagination.
Hi, this is Robert Ems, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
When you came into this,
yes,
how did this happen? What's your Star Wars story? Were you a fan?
Oh, sure.
Were you a gamer? And how did these two worlds come together?
Star Wars has always been a part of my life. I tell this story all the time, but when I was a kid, I was gifted by a friend of the family the original trilogy on videotape. And it was the version that had the intro from Leonard Maltin,
Right.
in which he sort of talks about the themes of the movie and the filmmaking techniques. And though that sort of critique of the film and then the films themselves kickstarted my love of movies in general, which has been sort of an enduring pillar of my life.
Yeah.
And I've loved Star Wars ever since. And then as a game design professional coming to this game, it felt like a dream job, of course. How could you not want to sit and create cards based on characters that you've known your whole life and care deeply about and that are beloved by so many people?
It's funny, because so many of us are into Star Wars, but from different perspectives, if that makes sense. It's such a broad church in that way. I often think especially with guys who do the gaming stuff, like yourself, having that knowledge going in, and when a game opportunity or an IP gets bought by the company and you've got a chance to do it, that must put you in a really strong position that you've got a good, solid basis knowledge of the world before you even start laying out the game.
Well, sure. Knowing things about Star Wars is great, and being willing to learn about it is possibly even more important. There's so much great content out there that your average person hasn't had a chance to engage with yet. Novels and books and films and comics and so on. And so it's been really exciting to have as part of my job the chance to engage with those materials and learn about them and learn what makes them tick and learn why people like them.
That you make a really interesting point there. You mentioned the books and the comics and all that stuff. Back in the Decipher days, when they would Photoshop a new look or a new character or a tweak or an addition or whatever, and it was so exciting back then. And now you have this broad swathe of other stuff that you can pull from. Like, again, you mentioned Avar, Chris, that's a great example. Where can you pull things from? Can you pull things from? Is it the whole gamut of Star Wars canon?
Absolutely. And so talking about canon, we have characters from the films. Of course, we have characters from the TV shows. We have just featured Ahsoka and Baylan Skoll, characters from the Ahsoka sort of TV series.
Yeah.
We draw from the entirety of the canon. We come into it really from a perspective of what's the right time and place to bring this character to the game. Set 1, Spark of Rebellion, we couldn't have it without Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa. And then we have sort of always allowed ourselves a little bit of room to figure out what's the deeper cut here. Where is this going to make sense?
Yeah.
And so sometimes that means holding off on Jedi Fallen Order until Legends of the Force came, and then now we're introducing characters like Marin and BD-1 and maybe even a couple more from the beloved video game series, which I'm a huge fan of. And maybe we'll get to this more, but this game is with Legends of the Force. We're also introducing non-canon material.
Right.
So we're expanding our horizons just a little bit more into Knights of the Old Republic and bringing in Darth Revan and some of his supporting cast. And that's been really, really exciting.
That must be so cool for you as a fan to be able to dig into look into those little corners that maybe might not be so obvious, but
Absolutely.
avid gamers and Star Wars fans are going to absolutely pop for that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really a matter of choosing the right moment, right? Maybe there's a world where we could have done Darth Revan earlier or waited even longer, but we felt like this was the moment to engage with those characters and bring them into the fold, so to speak.
You've got, doing my research, I noticed you've got a really strong card database.
Yes.
Which isn't something that every company does for their specific products. How closely is that curated? How often is that updated? And what's the reaction been from the fan base? Because it does seem like a really, I'll say, thoughtful thing for you to do. It's just so handy for collectors. Oh,
it's handy, absolutely. We have a great web team at FFG. And they're pretty meticulous. It's a heavy load, and it's a lot more involved than probably an ordinary person thinks to maintain a database like that.
Yeah.
Especially for a game that has, we have variant art treatments and multiple languages, and so we want to be able to showcase the cards in, what does it look in the hyperspace treatment, which is a sort of extended border variation. We have alternate art treatments for every single leader in the game. And so, just shout out to the Fantasy Flight web team. They work really hard, and I think they do a good job.
For everything in one location, Daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds. Bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
Now, from recollection, I think Fantasy Flight launched X-Wing Celebration Anaheim about 10 years ago, 2015, there or thereabouts.
Could be, okay.
So you've had an involvement as a company with Star Wars in pretty intensely for that whole 10 years.
Many years.
And you've done the live events, the gaming convention, the competitions and such. And that feels, as an outsider looking in, quite an integral part of the whole experience that you want to make any couple of guys sitting in their room playing a hand can kind of feel like they're part of this bigger thing, which is so Star Wars, it's crazy. How important is that to Fantasy Flight to keep these events going on?
Oh, I love the big events, and I think I can speak for the studio in the sense that going to events out into communities, and it's so special to be able to bring this game to a large audience, both to enfranchised gamers like here at UKGE who know board games and stuff, but also because families come to this show and dads and their sons, grandfathers and their granddaughters, and they'll come and they'll see the cool cards, and it's something for them to come together about. And really, this is just pure philosophy, but all games are for is a tool for people to spend time together.
Yeah.
And for me, there's no better way to do that than a card game between people.
Absolutely. And when you're designing a game or designing an update or designing a set or whatever it might be, what's the core thinking? What's the thing you're reaching for? Is it to expand what's gone before, to find new things, to grab new people? What's the hook that you're always going for?
Well, getting new people is always nice, but it's also important to give people more of what they came for.
Yeah.
So, for example, our second set, Shadows of the Galaxy, featured a lot of the underworld, the criminal underbelly of the galaxy, bounty hunters, things like that, smugglers, and those are sort of a part of the core Star Wars experience to a lot of people. When I think of Star Wars, I think of that stuff personally. I think of reading the Legends stuff from when I was a kid, or and that's the kind of characters that I get excited about. So, we think, well, there are people who will come to the game because we have them. There are people who will stay with the game if we keep giving them stuff we like. So there's definitely an element of that.
Yeah.
A lot of it is finding a theme and a set of game mechanics that are going to complement one another and feel really special together. So for Legends of the Force, for example, set 5, that me and my co-designer Joe O'Neill and our co-designer Aaron Haltom, we worked together essentially to figure out, we know we want the Force to be the centerpiece of a set.
Sort of part of the whole process.
It will be, yeah, absolutely. So we knew we wanted it to revolve around the Force somehow. Yeah. We wanted all the Jedi. We wanted Sith aplenty. We're up to here with Sith. And we wanted Force users off the beaten path. We wanted the Night Sisters of Dathomir.
Yeah.
We wanted, Night Brothers, not necessarily Force users, but sort of related to the ecosystem of the Force, and so on. And so we knew that if we were going to make a set of cards, 260 some cards per release, 3 times a year, we knew that we wanted to have a core mechanic that represented those ideas in a way that felt authentic and felt fun.
It strikes me that's a lot of cards. The game looks $1 million, and you've got a fantastic art team. Your art department must be working non-stop to keep on top of all these new cards. Can you speak a little bit about that, because it looks such an evocative looking game, just as something on the shelf?
Absolutely. Our art team and our graphic design team are just unbelievable professionals. They're absolutely incredible people who are so passionate about the product. They do work incredibly hard. They work incredibly hard to find talented artists, and they also work with those artists to refine their talents and grow their talents, and hopefully nourish that artist for a long time with commissions and great art.
Yeah.
It's my favorite part of my job, one of my favorites. I have many. But one of my favorite parts of the job is designing a card. It lives only in my head and in a spreadsheet for a long time. We'll play test it with placeholder art. And early in the development of the set, we write the art briefs to describe what the picture on the card should look like.
Yeah.
I want to see Mace Windu attacking with all his strength. That's what the art brief might say in this setting. And then the really exciting part of the job is when you log in for the day and you can go and see the new art that's come in overnight. And you get to see that picture of the character doing exactly what you thought in your head, but usually almost always better than you could have imagined.
Yeah.
Because it's been interpreted by a great artist and honed by our art direction team. Once it slots into that beautifully graphic designed card frame, then you're really cooking.
Hi, this is Ashley Eckstein, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
When you bring in a new, there's a better word for it than I'm going to use, a mechanism, a new little rule set into a certain release, does that retroactively run back to the previous card sets? How does that all work? If you come up with, you mentioned the Force earlier, you may work a new sort of device mechanism for using the Force within the game. Would that spread out to previous sets? How does that all work?
Absolutely, I'd love to talk about that. So Legends of the Force introduces a mechanic called the Force. We have cards in the game now, as of Legends of the Force, that say, use the Force, period, do something. Defeat a unit.
Yeah.
And that's essentially the Shatterpoint card. It shows Mace Windu doing a Shatterpoint. Very cool.
Yeah.
And so, one thing that's really neat about Star Wars Unlimited and about TCGs in general is that the cards tend to complement one another just by virtue of working and living within the same game system.
Yeah.
So, how do you get the Force in Star Wars Unlimited? You have a base. Every deck has a one base card that's sort of the deck's identity.
Yeah.
So I want to have Fortress Vader as my base for my Darth Vader deck.
Yeah.
Fortress Vader says, when a Force unit attacks, the Force is with you. Then I could use that Shatterpoint card to defeat a unit. So one thing that helps this mechanic be forward and backward compatible is every set of Star Wars Unlimited will have Force units in it.
Yeah.
So in that sense, the mechanic will always work forward and backward because we'll always have Force units to trigger that base.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does, because you're not going to introduce everything at the start in the very first set.
Absolutely.
You can't cover the whole thing. So I was just curious as you move forward. And also, within the broader canon, new things are going to come in.
Absolutely.
That you as a company and designers will want to adjust and change and react to. It just struck me as very interesting that you would run it back. Fantasy Flight, as we say, have had the license now for 10 years. You've supported a lot of games fantastically. What would give me confidence as a new guy coming into Unlimited, who may go and spend a load of money in a few minutes on sets, that you are going to support this game for the long term? Because you mentioned this was it three expansions a year?
Yes.
260 cards a set. So that's a lot of investment for a game to put into it. What will give me confidence that you're in this for the long haul?
Absolutely. What I can tell you is that FFG's support and Asmodee's support for this game has been monumental. When I joined the team, I joined in a cohort of 4 designers who were added to the initial cadre of 3 who created Star Wars Unlimited.
Yeah.
So when we joined, that made a total of 7 designers on the game. At that point, we were by far the largest design team that Fantasy Flight had ever had. At that point, 7 was, I think, about twice as many designers as any product line FFG had ever made.
Yeah.
At this point, there are 12 people working on Star Wars Unlimited.
Wow.
So it has almost, again, doubled.
Yeah.
This is a massive investment of resources from the studio side, from the Asmodee side, and it shows that they're investing in their people, they're investing in their teams and the people who make the game. The marketing department has grown, the visual design teams have grown, and all of this is to create an ecosystem in which we believe that this game will be extremely successful in the long term. Our Galactic Championship, our World Championship, so to speak, is going to be in Las Vegas this year.
Nice.
There will be around 2,000 plus players in it. And we don't expect that to look any different next year or the year after, besides an eventual change of venue maybe, so that we can bring the game to new countries, new markets.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
It does. I'm always curious with a game that's so well defined and so well laid out and has already got a great history. what's the long-term vision? And we sit here in 2025, 2 years away from the 50th, which is going to be huge for everybody.
Absolutely.
I mean, you as a fan, but also as you know, as a Fantasy Flight guy and an Unlimited guy, must be excited by that.
I'm so excited. You know, the anniversary feels exciting. You know, it feels special.
Yeah.
It's going to be special to a lot of people. Speaking to the long-term vision for Star Wars Unlimited, the long-term sort of promises that we are excited to make is that, you know, I'm the co-lead designer of Set 5.
Yeah.
I'm the co-lead designer of Set 7, which has not even been announced yet.
Right.
I'm the co-lead of projects that have yet to be announced past that. We are planning and working extremely far ahead because we believe in the longevity of this game and the ability we have to bring more characters, more interpretations of your favorite characters to the forefront.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much for your time. I've really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
You've got a new convert now.
Oh, converts make the greatest zealots, they say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thanks for listening to Collecting Tracks. If you want to be part of the action, stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, visit fanthatracks.com or check out the free Fantha Tracks app through the App Store to follow us on your mobile device. You can reach out to us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@fanthatracks.com. Comment, like and share on any of our social media feeds at Fantha Tracks, and be sure to subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Semple for composing the Fantha Tracks intro, Andy Lythe for our Collecting Tracks open music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. Remember to tune in to Good Morning Tatooine, live Sunday evenings at 9 PM UK time, 4 PM Eastern and 1 PM Pacific on Facebook and YouTube. Check out Fantha Tracks Radio Friday evenings at 7 PM UK time for new episodes of The Fantha from Down Under, Planet Leia, Desert Planet Discs, Start Your Engines, Collecting Tracks and Cannon Fodder. And every Tuesday at 7 PM UK time for your weekly episode of Making Tracks.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Making Tracks.